Still preparing. You know, the bar is loading now. Okay. Oh, yes, we're live now. So what happens? Preparing. What happens when you change your identity? What happens when you ascend?
That is such a good question, Joanna. And I think you can answer it in so many different ways. And to answer this, I'm going to give you a couple of examples. And then I'm going to illustrate it with like a visual hands movement so you can really get what identity ascension or becoming your best self, what all of that means. I'll start off by telling you something that happened to me quite recently when I shifted identity, when I ascended in my identity. I was on a call with a mentor and we spoke about, lots of things, identity related, aspiration related. And that same night, I went into my wardrobe and I cleared out all of the clothes that I had been in my wardrobe that I hadn't worn for years and years and years. I'm talking easily 10 years. Clothes that had just been lying around that I had kept thinking, just in case, maybe I'll wear them, or or maybe just out of nostalgia, like, I used to remember when I remember when I used to wear this, or this reminds me of the time where I used to. And oftentimes I just realized that those used to just never happened again. And it really took me that call with my mentor to make me realize, but that's a past version of you. So why are you clinging on to her? And so after having emptied literally 4 massive bags of clothes that I no longer wore, I then went and bought myself some new clothes that corresponded to the new identity level, the new identity match. Now, this is just an example of what identity ascension can look like. It can be through how you dress, how you present yourself. It can be through how you talk. And I think another example that so many people can relate to is maybe the past version of yourself when you were younger, when you were, I don't know, a 5-year-old girl or, a 20-year-old girl. You just wouldn't really speak up, or you would be very, very delicate in how you would convey a message that might offend people. And I know that now, whereas 5 years ago, you'd have asked me, oh, what do you think of that? And I didn't actually like it. I'd have said, well, it's not really my thing. Whereas now I'm just like, oh, thank you, but no, thank you. So whereas, before in the old identity, I would be more cautious about not offending people. In the new identity, it's more like you own who you are and you own your opinions, and you're not responsible for how other people feel about you. And I think just the beautiful way to recap identity ascension is your old identity is here, and then the new identity is here. And this jump is going to be the identity ascension. And it's super, super easy to, while you're jumping, to think, oh no, I'm going to stay back. Oh no, just like I was holding on to those clothes, like, oh no, but this reminds me of the old version that I used to be. And then when you finally get into this new identity, it's almost like everything just realigns in your body's on board, your mind is on board, and it just clicks, right? And I think just the beautiful thing is that this isn't something static in time. You never stop evolving, right? And I think, Joanna, you can relate to this so deeply. You never stop evolving, and your identity never stops shifting.
Yes, and we were talking about that, you were saying you changed it in business as well, isn't it? Okay, so what happens now, you're just not afraid to say that to the clients, and
Absolutely.
the clients you attract on a different level, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And whereas, at the beginning, I was speaking more to, when I started my coaching business specifically, but whereas when I started my coaching business, I was speaking more to the very beginner level client who was still trying to figure out their niche, trying to figure out who they were speaking to, their customer, who was still trying to figure, let's say, their business out. Now, through that identity ascension, I realized, but I don't actually feel lit up by speaking to that person anymore. And what was super interesting, and I think, Joanna, this again, you can relate to this, was that I felt some level of guilt no longer being lit up by speaking to that client. It's like, oh, but does that make me a bad person if I no longer want to speak to this person? Does that make me a bad coach if, I'm bored in a way of speaking to this person? And it doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean you're a bad person nor a bad coach. It just means that this specific type of work or level of work does no longer light you up. And this is a typical example of identity ascension, because you've changed. What lights you up has changed, and your content then reflects that, your work then reflects that, your services reflect that. So whereas before my content was my work was very much teach you how to create content, the different styles of content, etc. Now my work is, okay, I'm working with women who are already established, they have their handful of private clients, and they want to go bigger, they want to make more impact, they want to double that client volume. And in order to do that, they actually need to create a legacy offer. So it's a completely different level of client that stems from this identity ascension, and this identity ascension then has enormous repercussions on your entire business, on who you speak to, how you present yourself, your services, your pricing, your content, everything.
Okay, okay. Yes, I love hearing that. Oh, okay. Well, everybody, this is Joella. She's currently based in Belgium, and as she already told you, she helps her clients, okay, to expand their legacy. Okay, she helps her clients to double their impact. All right, and I think she already is explaining on how she's doing it. So you already told us a little bit about yourself, how like you thrown all the wardrobe out, right? Okay, because you were not resonating with that. Okay, well, how did you start it in coaching? You were telling me that you were doing something that it didn't lit you up. All right, okay. So and I think a lot of us can relate to that, because sometimes in business we get to that stage, okay, where we feel like we either like reach the glass ceiling, okay, we're just not excited. We might feel stuck, okay, something needs to change. We've been doing that for a while, and we can talk about it a little bit more, right? But what happened to you? Maybe tell me, yeah, can you share the story, what you were doing before?
Of course. I mean, I think like any business owner, you go through several phases of your business doing different things. And, when I initially got started, I got started in affiliate marketing when I got started into the online world. And then I persisted in it for about 9 months, and then I didn't feel lit up by it. But so I changed, and then I discovered the world of digital marketing, faceless marketing, reselling courses with master resale rights on them. And, I was like, oh, okay, this seems interesting. And so I started doing that. I started making money. I started getting clients, and that was amazing. But then pretty quickly, that same feeling of, oh, but this isn't lighting me up came up. This feeling of, oh, but this isn't, or rather, it was the feeling of, I don't actually care about this course that I'm reselling. I actually care about helping the women who I'm selling the courses to implement the work that they need to do. I feel super passionate about helping them ascend in their business, ascend in their personality. And I think that feeling that I had kind of ignored when I switched from affiliate to digital, I realized that I could no longer ignore it. And I just realized, okay, I need to start my own coaching business. And I think this is something that so many people, it's so easy to ignore that for so long, simply because you're stuck in your own ways. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but it's just you're so used to doing the same thing over and over and over again. It just becomes a pattern. Yeah, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to sell some MRR courses. I'm going to wake up, I'm going to sell another digital marketing course. And you do it more out of habit and not so much out of
Yes.
lighting you up.
Yes, I actually have a really good example. Once I worked with a client who owned a furniture store, and when that was like 6 years ago, something like that. And he hired us, our marketing agency, because he wanted to get more clients. And when I looked at what he's spending money on, he was spending, a couple thousand on radio ads, but he didn't have a Facebook page. He didn't have he owned a furniture store, but his chairs, his beds, his furniture was being sold on radio without visual images. And I said, why are you doing that? But I have a really great deal. Okay, I'm friends with the guy at the radio station. We have this great relationship, and he was convinced that he's getting a really good deal, even though he wasn't getting results for years. Okay, and even though he didn't look at setting up Facebook and trying advertising there. And I think there's so many examples where people do that, right? Okay, there are so many ways where we're just doing things out of habit, like you say. Okay, because somebody told us, right? Okay, and even now when we look at all the business culture, okay, a lot of entrepreneurs are just jumping, oh, this is a new marketing trend. Oh, we need to do that. But why do you need to do that? Maybe your business doesn't need that. Okay, just because everybody's doing it doesn't mean that you have to, isn't it? And so yeah, I think that kind of like really relates to what we're talking about, because once you realize that you're stuck, it's so easy to get unstuck, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's just a beautiful story because it properly illustrates.
Well, why? So how did you have that light bulb moment that you need to, what was it? What was it? Because sometimes people don't realize. So if you can give, like an advice or something like that, because
So, I
sometimes
mean,
people don't realize that they're stuck.
I think for me, it was really that feeling of it being heavy when I woke up in the morning, like, ugh,
Mm,
I have to do
okay.
this. Or it wasn't coming from a place of I get to do this. It was coming from a place of I have to do this. I can't exactly pinpoint the day or what I was doing or whether I was drinking a smoothie on that day, but
Yeah.
I think it
Yeah.
was just the culmination of this really heavy feeling. And in a lot of cases, businesses just end up burning the whole thing down. And, you know, a very good way for you to realize whether or not you're in that cycle or whether or not you're actually doing what you love is literally asking yourself the question, do I love what I'm doing in my business? And Joanna, I think this is something you were telling me about your methodology in your work. That
Yeah.
this is one of the fundamental pillars of how you work with your clients. You help them realize, okay, you're doing that, but do you even like what you're doing?
Yeah, actually, you so right. It's the second pillar in my bottom line boost method, where I coach you how to choose a strategy you love. Okay, because once you focus on what you love, you don't need any willpower, right? Okay, and again, I think you kind of touched a little bit on. Sometimes we're doing it because we have to do, and money is a factor, right? Okay, sometimes you have to make money, and you think there is like no other way around. But the actual secret to make more money is, okay, by start doing what you love. And I don't know if you have stories. I certainly have stories when I wasn't even trying to sell, like, and I'm just being myself and I'm excited about my business. And people just ask me, okay, what do you do? How do I work with you? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I think there is this belief missing that it's possible, isn't it? Okay,
Yeah.
because one time I went to this networking event where I met this person, like who was doing multi-millions with their business. And because I wasn't trying to sell, or I was genuinely asking him questions, and he got to know me and he got to like me. In the end, he was saying, so what's your website? Okay, maybe I need any of your services. And did anything like that happen to you? Because I have few stories that happens to me when I'm just being myself and people like, oh, I want to work with you. Right? Okay. And that comes out because you just being in your element, right? But
Exactly.
somewhere, like, and I'm really big and I talk on my channel a lot about breaking limited beliefs, okay? Like getting rid of everything that doesn't serve you anymore, like, but you show up differently when you are yourself and you attract different type of people,
Yeah.
right?
And I think just to jump into that, because you said something super interesting was get rid of anything that doesn't serve you. But there's something else that you said before that. It's more when you're not trying to do that. Yeah, I can't remember how you phrased it, but bottom line is that when you not only get rid of everything that doesn't serve you, but you also put yourself in the environments where being that bigger
Mhm.
person, being you, being or striving for, the multi-million or whatever your financial goal is, or whatever your
Yeah.
goal in your business is, being in those type of environments where it's normalized, where other people are striving for the same things as you,
Mhm.
where they
Yeah.
have the same delusional, ridiculous, ambitious goals, it also creates safety in you to be you. I don't know if that makes sense. I think we can all relate to so many situations where you're talking about your business to your friends who are not in business and they just think, oh, you're completely crazy. And so it kind of blocks you
Yeah.
from being you, from being all of you. Whereas the you in business, in your masterminds or whatever type of spaces, because you're surrounded by so many other people who are doing the same things as you, who are going as crazy as you are, it just creates that safety in being you, right?
Yes, actually, that's a brilliant point. And I'm in few masterminds, and I think you are as well, right? Okay. And
Correct.
even us as coaches, we believe in our clients, okay, that they're gonna achieve. And that's why I love being in masterminds, because then you just see other people succeeding and it just becomes normal. Okay, oh, they
Mm-hmm.
had like a 20K day. Oh, okay, they did that if it's monitor, right? And I remember when I was running a sales agency, whenever sales were low because everybody's doing that. But then it only takes one person to go to that next level, and then everybody around them starts believing, oh, if he's doing, I can. And then there's like another person, another person. And then you nearly that one person in the room who's not, and you're like, okay, I need to do it. So it's not even the strategy, it's not even mechanics, but it's like that belief in yourself that you can do
Absolutely.
it. And I think you know that being safe to be yourself, and like we kind of like coming back into this thing, being safe to be yourself, being in that environment, right? And I think that's really coming back to your mission. You were telling me that you have this really cool mission for women of color, right?
Yeah.
Where you help them to feel safe, you provide that thing.
Correct. Yeah, and this actually stems from a very personal story, so which I told you, and I'm going to tell again here. But one of the first mentors that I hired when I first got into the online space, this was when I was doing affiliate marketing, was actually a woman of color. And I had seen so many other women succeed, white women, lots of types of nationalities, lots of ethnicities. And I always thought, oh, this is amazing for them. And I love that. And, yeah, I can be like them. But the day that I saw a woman of color, so somebody who looked like me, it's almost like it made it all the more possible because it had normalized those types of results for somebody who looked like me. And I just remember that feeling of when I messaged her, I said, "Oh my God, I can't believe I found somebody like you online." And my message was something along those lines. And I just remembered how that made me feel. And it's also how I want to make other women who look like me feel, because
Mhm.
this mission of impacting two times the people, impacting, having two times the clients, having two times the impact, it doesn't just stem from monetary goals. Yeah, of course money is good, but I think, and especially as a woman of color, it's to normalize the levels of success that you're striving for a woman who looks like you. It's really making it completely normal, because I didn't grow up with many, well, with any entrepreneurial figures in my family. And so I felt like the odd one out when
Mhm.
I first went into entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
And it's just that moment where, oh, but if I had seen that representation before, or if I had that representation, I would have X, Y, and Z. And I think this is so valid, whatever the niche that you're in. But my sole mission is creating that safety and creating that normalization for women of color to grow their business, double their business, scale their impact.
That's really beautiful. Yeah, I remember when I was growing up, and this is something I just uncovered when I was doing ancestral therapy, like in the last couple months. I didn't have uncles who were like kind of saying, you can do it, go for it. Okay. But again, I come from, like Eastern Europe, where we were in Soviet Union, and, like people were oppressed a lot, like emotionally and mentally. And I was like thinking, oh, if I only had an uncle like that, somebody who believes in you, because, when somebody believes in you, it's really, it's not like the recipe for success, but we
It's a
really need that.
catalyst.
Isn't it? Okay. And if you don't have that, you need to build that belief muscle within yourself, right? I think I wrote a post before. The only person you have to convince, about your goals is not other people around you, but yourself. Okay. Because once you believe that you're going to succeed, once you believe that you're going to hit your goals, you will. Okay. But again, like sometimes like you said, we speak to our friends and family and they don't understand that what we do, and sometimes even they project their insecurities. Actually, I remember when I became a business coach, like 7 8 years ago or whatever, and I told one of my housewife friends how much I'm going to be making an hour. And she's like, this is too much, you can't do that. That was her reaction. And like, oh, okay, I was in a pretty good emotional state, so I didn't really react to it. But for her, she's at home with children, she's not working, and she doesn't come from business background. She couldn't understand that, that level. And I think one of my mentors even one of my mentors said, like last week, you need to normalize yourself what's possible. And if you are already in a room where somebody is making seven or multiple seven figures, like a year, then you need to get into a room where there are people making that
Eight,
amount
yeah.
of money in a month. Okay,
Mhm.
if you want to achieve your goals, if this is what you want to go for, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Because and I think it really beautifully kind of like wraps this whole conversation up, because it's about becoming. Even Michelle Obama wrote a book about it, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Becoming, right? I never read it, but I was just thinking about it, that once, yeah, first you have to become somebody you want
Yeah.
to be, and then it's gonna happen if you believe in manifestation.
Yeah, and I think in order to become, because this is a beautiful way to wrap it up. And in order to become that somebody, people might ask, but how do I become that somebody? Well, honestly, that thing that you've been avoiding doing, do it. How
Mhm.
to become is to do the thing that you avoid doing. That thing that has been on your, oh, I know I should do it, but, or oh, I'll do it tomorrow, but what you're avoiding, do it. Because once you normalize that scary step, once your body is on board, once your neurons are on board, once your energy is on board, you become that person. So what you're avoiding is what you should be doing.
Yes, and I actually think you put it so beautifully together. I love it. Okay, because I was actually even thinking what my clients are afraid of, right? And one of the biggest things is showing up publicly who they are, like whether it's on camera, whether, like it's communicating what they, want. I was even thinking about maybe I'll do a challenge, like 30 days or something like that, becoming camera confident or so, right? Okay, just because we are talking about it. But one of my mentors said that, what is a stretch action? Sometimes we think that we need to make action from our to-do list. But our to-do list is like so long, and it never gets shorter, isn't it? Like, okay, so we can just make it. So one thing what she suggested, and I really love it, is just have three things on your to-do list. Okay. And once you master those three things, then add more things on your to-do list. Right. And usually, like you say, the thing that you are afraid to do, you need to do it. Or sometimes even not that you're not afraid to do it, but just doing things differently.
Yeah.
Who said it? Who said it? Definition of insanity is doing the same thing over
It's
and over
Albert
again.
Einstein. It's Albert Einstein. The insanity
Yes.
is doing the same
Yes.
thing over and over and expecting a different result.
Yes. 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 Okay.
Yeah.
And look, yeah, just before we go, just tell me about what you do, about how you do it, signature offers, and where people can find you, like if they want to work with you or anything like that.
Yeah, beautiful. I mean, thank you so much, of course, for having me on your live. It's been an absolutely beautiful conversation. You can follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is Joella Priam. So that is JoellaPriam altogether. And essentially, my work is transformational. Nobody teaches what I teach the way I teach it. Okay.
Okay.
There's so many people out there who will teach you how to create content, how to create an offer, how to this, how to that. But nobody actually teaches you how to do the transition from when you've already got something that's working, when you've already got the safety around having, oh, I've got a handful of clients, oh, it's working. Nobody teaches you and holds you through that transition of, I need to shift my business model that is currently working to something that will work in the future, that unfortunately you will have to potentially take an income dip in order to restructure your business, create that scalable offer, which will then catapult your income. Is
Mm.
creating that security around this container that helps you then increase your capacity and completely uncap your potential. And, you know, I work with my clients very, very long term. This isn't a 2-month program. This is a minimum 6 months commitment, simply because the longer the commitment, the more results you can get. And the beautiful thing is that, you know, this is work that we get to do, and we always continue shifting because we as people continue evolving. So I'm just going to wrap this up. You can find me on Instagram. Hit me up in the DMs. It's at Joella Priam, and we can talk so much more in depth about expanding your vision, expanding your business.
Beautiful. I will link, in the description, your Instagram thing. And thank you for being here, right? And have a